come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Super2, joining me today is...
Geek for fun. Oh.
And the timing is just beautiful.
You're so bad at this! We have no repertoire!
I know. It's great. It's like, is there like a band where like they were formed one way and then like the guitarist became a Nazi, so they kicked out the guitarist, and then the drummer became a philosopher and just got way too busy in his own shit and then left for a while. So they got a new guitarist, they got a new drummer, and then the guitarist left again, but they brought the same drummer back, and now there's just like no sense of cohesion to the band. Is there like a direct
basically
metaphor?
Just describing the history of Panic at the Disco, and you're Brendan Urie.
Wow. Are you serious, or are you fucking with me right now?
For my students in undergrad, when I teach them intro and I teach them the Ship of Theseus, where they're like, you know that example where like, if you keep taking one board away and replacing it with a new one, at what point does it not become your ship, yada yada yada? I explain that to them by explaining to them, okay, at what point is this no longer Panic at the Disco? The answer is very quickly.
That's too good.
Oh man.
It basically stopped being Panic at the Disco after the second album.
Nice. Okay. So anyway, we're reviewing a topic I picked tonight, kinda sorta. Alfie kinda shoved his weeboo trash in there too. So I really wanted to talk about the Saiyan Saga of Dragon Ball. Because Alfie and I have been working on the whole Dragon Ball DC Saiyan Saga video. Plug, go check it out. This is one of those rare episodes of Geeky Gentlemen where they actually time out nicely and become relevant. And yeah, so it just had me thinking about the Sand Saga, and I wanted to talk about it. But like, that's like, what, 30 episodes in the original dub or the original run of the show, and then Alfie's like, oh, but it's only like 12 in Kai, because he's a dirty fucking liar, it's like 18. So yeah, and I'd never seen Kai, and it seemed like a cool little opportunity to expose myself to Kai. Fun little fact, everyone here really likes Dragon Ball. Steve hates the Saiyan Saga, and he also hates Dragon Ball Kai.
I really hate Kai. Kai sucks.
Okay, so let's start with Steve. What'd you think of Dragon Ball Kai, the Saiyan Saga?
Okay, so as written, the Saiyan Saga is not bad. It's not the thing I go to for Dragon Ball in any capacity. I think it's too slow, and everything I find interesting about Z happens after the Saiyans. So I just have no reason to go back to it. And 9 times out of 10, if it's on TV, I will get bored and fall asleep. It's not that there isn't stuff in it, but everything that's important to me about this series happens after it. Or before it, depending on how you look at it. So I'm not a fan of this arc in general. I think if there's one season in GT that's better than anything in Z, it's probably Baby is better than this, which I know is fighting words for you, Ian, but it's facts, so whatever.
Okay. Ouch.
My problem with Kai is that it's really, really poorly edited, and so it might as well just be a clip show on YouTube, and I can't watch it as like a coherent 22 minutes straight episode. It's so choppy. They remastered the actual like aspect ratio, so most of the frame is cut off. The actual flow of the fight scenes are chopped so they can save seconds in places. It's even more pronounced when you get to the Buu arc later, where like the seamless punches between Goku and Majin Vegeta are chopped up so the fight takes half the time, and it looks terrible. It's not even that they cut the filler. It's that they cut literally any second where something isn't being directly said. And it just looks amateur, and I hate it, and I can't stand it. It feels like the whole episode's on fast forward every episode. And then even more than that, there's just this consistent quality shift back and forth between them using original footage and them using remastered footage. And then when you get to the Buu Saga, it's like new footage and old footage, so it's even more jarring. But in the Saiyan Saga, it's old footage and then HD upped, hyper cropped new footage, and it just jumps back and forth, and again just looks really, really amateur, like it's a fan project. I understand the need to make Dragon Ball Z more digestible in the sense of it's too long, but why the fuck is Dragon Ball the thing that needs this, but fucking Naruto, which is 225 episodes of nothing before the plot starts in Shippuden, doesn't need this? And yet somehow everyone on the planet is like, Dragon Ball Z Kai is the only way to watch Dragon Ball Z Kai. No, fuck you. You watch Dragon Ball Z, you can skip the filler if you want to, you can fast forward if you want to. Don't show me a clip show and then tell me this is an episode of television.
Oh my god, the Steve hot raging takes. I miss them so.
I don't know why I'm so angry about this, but I am, and I hate you for making me sit through it.
Okay, Alfie, what's your opinion, general thoughts on Dragon Ball Kai, and in particular the Saiyan Saga?
Kind of like the total opposite. But I think all your points there were pretty well handled, and I can totally see where you're coming from for some things. I will definitely concede to you that the Buu Saga in particular in Kai was just a shit show. The fact that the production got cut off because of the disasters in Japan, so they had to basically end it at the Cell Saga and then do the Buu Saga again, just because they needed to fill a time slot until they had Super ready. And it really shows. Like, the music's terrible, the music placement's awful, everything's completely just off about that. Everything's got this weird green tint that they tried to remaster it with. So yeah, 100% Buu Saga. If that's all you were talking about with your criticism of that, I think you were 100% right. I don't really see... I feel like I can get, like, the choppy editing for, like, the first couple of episodes of this. I feel like the first episode in particular really does feel like they were still trying to find their footing. Like, in the scene in Kame House, like, you see Bulma and Krillin, their positions change a lot from scene to scene. It doesn't really flow naturally because they're cutting some things out. But in terms of, like, the actual fights and the delivering of the story, I think it all flows really, really well. It's obviously much faster paced, but I feel like as someone who's used to the more manga pacing and things kind of how Toriyama writes that way, things are kind of abrupt. Things do kind of just happen quickly, which is kind of a direct shift from how the anime normally handles, like, the long stare downs that define Dragon Ball. But those are still in here, there and there. Overall, I feel like Kai, while not really necessary if you're going to watch the sub, I do really think it is the best way at the moment to watch it in English, just primarily for, yes, some of the episodes are less well edited than the original, like, storyboards of the main series, and you can tell the animation distinctions a lot more because we're literally splicing like 5 different episodes into 2. But the cast is so vastly more improved and the script's so much closer to what's actually in the intention that I find it hard to ever recommend to people who don't want to watch the sub but want to watch Dragon Ball and dub, and are new fans. Recommending them the original series just feels like a disservice to the material to me, and that's mainly why I go to Kai. I also find just the Saiyan Saga in general, if we're going to that, I think it's a really interesting arc because it's such a transitionary arc away from the mystical adventure, like the sci-fi stuff, but we haven't quite lost all of that yet. We're not quite into the crazy transformations. We're not quite into the rest of the side characters being completely thrown away. Everything's still kind of there from Dragon Ball being transitioned into this more heavily science fiction, sci-fi blend that I really am science fiction, sci-fi there. This blend of just stuff that lets people like Tien still get really cool moments, that lets Piccolo have a really interesting character arc continue with him, lets Vegeta shine as a villain, which is in retrospect still really weird to watch sometimes. I just really love this arc. I could gush on about all day, and as I'm sure we'll go into it more, just like individual character stuff. But yeah, on the Kai thing in general, that is something I do want to talk about. And I guess what I'm most curious about is, I feel like me and you both have like our own disposed takes. Ian, what did you think about this as your first watch?
You know, it's weird because I've never read the manga. I've been really considering it lately, but I've never actually sat down and read the manga. My entirety of my experience with Dragon Ball was watching it as a kid in the original Toonami airings of it, and rewatching the entire series twice now as an adult. Once just before I was about to go into college with like different versions of the dub on YouTube and illegally uploaded versions, and then once just watching through the entire series. And so like the Saiyan Saga in particular is really weird because it's, in the original dub, it's almost mostly filler. Like, again, it's like 30 episodes or something like that, and Kai brings it down to 18. And yeah, a lot of the episodes in the original dub are filler and do like this weird thing where they kind of, I guess, I don't know how to put it, they kind of make the arcs in the proper series pointless, which is kind of crazy. Like, Gohan learns the same lesson in one episode that he's supposed to learn throughout the entirety of the thing. So it's interesting, if nothing else, to see the episodes, to see the story as it was, or closer to how it was originally intended. Closer to just being a very straightforward story. And I think some of that works a lot better. Other parts are really freaking weird and like create problems. Like Yajirobe is really weird in this because he just shows up toward the end. He's like, the last time we saw him was on Kami's lookout. So like there's stuff like that kind of stands out. As far as the editing thing, it's been probably about a year and a half since I rewatched through the entire series. So I guess I don't have enough of the stuff in very clear memory to notice if there's like large chunks of things edited out, and because I'm experiencing aspects of this fresh for the first time, that stuff like continuity errors and stuff like that didn't stand out to me. The fight scenes, I didn't notice any choppy editing that was like cutting stuff out. That could just be me not noticing it, or it could be just less pronounced in this first arc of Kai. As Alfie said, they're figuring some stuff out. So that was, something that I came to there, as I didn't quite notice anything like that. And I don't know, it was a different experience, and it did feel a little more direct and nice. Because when I hear people say, oh, the Saiyan Saga is boring, they're usually talking about like, we got like 4 episodes of Goku running on Snake Way, or, Gohan spending an entire episode in a cave with a robot. I don't necessarily agree with those criticisms, but I can understand them more than I can like the proper fights and stuff that we do get. So yeah, I don't know. I quite enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll go and watch the rest of Kai at this point. Maybe, maybe not. I am definitely in a Dragon Ball mood lately, so I might try to power through some of it. I'm a little disappointed here that the Buu Saga is the worst, because me being my controversial Dragon Ball ass fan, the Buu Saga is like my second favorite after this. So that's, take that how you will. Yeah, I don't know. I am in an odd position where I am the middleman in this conversation. I really don't have strong opinions one way or the other about Kai itself.
So I don't want you guys to think I hate it, but I hate it. Like, I really, really hate it. And I'm trying not to be that guy, but I really, really hate it. So, okay. Responding at least a little bit partly to what you said, Alfie, I think you're right about the manga being choppy. I think that's fine. But the big difference between the way manga and anime are done in Japan versus the way comics and TV shows are done in America is that there's always more of an emphasis on the lingering moments. You'll see in like manga panels that it's the same scene zoomed in like 3 or 4 times before you get to something happening. And Dragon Ball does that. It may not do it as much as something else, but it does do that. And Kai getting rid of almost all of it just annoys me from like a spatial awareness standpoint. The other big thing I don't like about it is, yes, the dubbing is redone to make it more accurate, But they already did that. It just so happens they did that in the orange bricks that no one should buy. And the problem that everyone has with the orange bricks about the way the show is cropped, the exact same thing they do with Kai anyway. So I don't really see much of a difference between watching this versus just watching the orange bricks, except skipping the filler.
Well, on Kai, the Kai was only cropped for the broadcast. On the DVDs and the Blu-rays, it's 4:3 still. So I get what you mean with that, but I will also say, the orange bricks are really weird with how they did that, because it's like Sabbath came back for that, a couple others came back for that, but like you get that weird like dissonance where Shemel's still doing his early Goku voice because he didn't like record some of the lines, like especially when you get like later on, whereas Sabbath's got his like Buu Saga Vegeta voice. But then in the Android Saga, it like stops and he goes back to the higher pitched one, and it's really weird and it takes me out of it. Like I much prefer this where he kind of everyone's coming back with a different performance that they know what the characters are. The situation for Dragon Ball's original dub is hilarious and fascinating, and everyone should look it up because holy crap, the things these guys had to put up with and the restraints they had to do, it's amazing that show turned out as good as it did. Like Sabbath and Chevelle just really like had no idea what they were doing half the time because they didn't get told what they were doing. It's like, oh yeah, do this. So with Kai, they have that awareness. They know what they're doing beginning to end. They know where the characters will end up. And I think that really shows. Shamel's making a much more direct effort here to actually sound like Goku. A big problem I have with the dub is it's mainly like I think Vegeta's fine, I think Piccolo's great, but Shamel's original dub performance really hurts it because he is just trying to be Superman. Not just in the lines, like his performance is very wooden, and it's very just like I am here to say like that. Here he's actually like gone much higher. He's giggling. He's like he feels so much more of a joy to listen to, and that really helps me just on a character point because Goku here, as like our protagonist, isn't in it a lot, and it's a problem Dragon Ball Z has a lot, and ever since the King Piccolo arc in like Dragon Ball, that's been like an issue. But I feel like it's handled in the Saiyan Saga quite well. Is Goku still doing shit? We're still getting to see him explore stuff, and it's expanding the lore. We're getting to see what the afterlife looks like, and all that stuff's great. And I feel like being able to connect with these characters more, being able to see Gohan and Piccolo in a more direct relationship without having all the stuff in the middle of Gohan, like Ian said, like Gohan learning his lesson every other episode. As much as I like some of those episodes, it does get a bit redundant, and it does harm like overall. I think it's one of those best things that is like, oh, we don't need to see Gohan and Piccolo's bonding because that's their time. We get to see snippets of it. We don't need to have like a whole season of that. And I think it pays off for me, especially the performance-wise, because I guess it depends what you're going in for Dragon Ball for. Like, if you just want to watch the fights or you just like to have something nostalgic, I think maybe just go for what your preference is, that everyone should do that. But if I'm trying to say, no, there's actually some meat here, which I think the Saiyan Saga does have, I know you're more critical of it, Steve, so I guess I'm curious where you land on that. I think this is the way to go because I think this helps portray those themes a lot more. Like, 100%. The kind of climax of the arc where Goku and Vegeta have that like standoff, which thankfully wasn't edited at all. Like that bit where they look at each other and then the rock falls, like that just all suspense, 100% how it is in the original show. But Goku's like rebuttal to him and says, "Oh, I'm glad I was a low class," and that's what the entire arc's basically been about. I think that works so much better here, and it really helps kind of like elevate it from like almost like fan film level qualities I hear sometimes in the original dub. To just like this is a show. This is people actually acting.
So my thing with, and I guess I'll start with the voice performances. My thing with Sabbath and Shamel specifically, because I think the other actors, you're right, especially in the Japanese, because the Japanese voice actors get older, but their performances change and grow as the show goes on, and that's all fine. But in the dub, Shamel and Sabbath have the exact same thing for me that Conroy and Hamill deal with Batman and the Joker, which is they got to a certain plateau and a certain style of their voice, and then they kept doing it. And then they got old and still just kept doing it as if they weren't old. And it really takes me out, and 9 times out of 10 in scenes in this series, maybe it's nostalgia. It could entirely be nostalgia. But every time I look at Goku in this, and I hear the voice, it doesn't sound like it's coming from that body. It's exactly like when Conroy's voice for Batman comes out of his body in Justice League Action. It does not look like that face is capable of making that voice. And it really, really bothers me. I think if they wanted to go with more of a dynamic range like this and they wanted to abandon the nostalgia, they should have just recast Goku, which maybe would have been heresy for most people, just like it is with Kevin Conroy. But you should have just recast Goku with someone younger and do the young, naive voice and then build up to what he's doing. Because as it stands for me, it just doesn't seem like it's appropriate for what they were going for. And the original Japanese voice of Goku in that performance is so distinctly different from Schemmel anyway, that if you were trying to adhere more to what the manga was saying in the Japanese, you would need a different performance, and you just didn't do that. You just did Schemmel, except trying to be something he's not. Like, you're right, he is very Superman-y, and that's fine for me, but if you're not going to write him like Superman, then voicing him as a multi-dimensional Superman still doesn't make sense to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that's just one of those things, though. Like, I am with you. I feel like maybe recasting him probably would have been a better choice. But just how the Dragon Ball Western fandom is, I don't think it would ever happen. I think he's even more heresy than Conroy. Because that has never, like, yeah, I think it's just something that people would just completely go in uproar over.
I think you're absolutely right. And then the other thing about that is Dragon Ball Z's American fan base is really, really fucking annoying. And Kai, as it went on, became more and more about the American fan base and the international broadcasting than it did about the Japanese. Specifically when you get to the Buu Saga.
I'd say that's accurate to Super, because that's when they're like legit changing things to make TFS jokes. So I think that's 100% right. Kai, I think, is where I think there's a middle ground. I can totally see the point you're making about them kind of getting into a rut, and I think that's the point where Super kind of falls into. I think Kai's the sweet spot where they're at the top of the game, and then it slowly, because they had to come back and redub the Buu, and I think that's when the fatigue, I guess you're calling it, is like setting in, because a lot of the changes here are like everything's 100% the script, nothing's improv, everything's 100% from the subs. And it's kind of night and day to when you look at like something like Super, and they're throwing in like Yamcha jokes. And so I feel like I think you're right, it's a problem with the dub. I don't think it's a problem with Kai, specifically in the Saiyan Saga.
So, okay, but then here's my point to that. If you're gonna watch Dragon Ball Z subbed, there's no reason to watch Kai when you can just watch the original series and skip the filler.
That's 100% right.
Yeah, and then if you're gonna watch the dub, you can watch Kai, but at that point, it seems like the effort to make Kai had nothing to do with what the actual problem with Dragon Ball Z was, which is it's just way too elongated. Because the one thing that Kai fixes is it changes it so that the American voice cast comes back in and re-records the lines and actually makes it faithful to the manga. Which, okay, fine. But that means Kai either had to be designed specifically for that reason, which it wasn't, or you just go and watch the sub.
Yeah, it's one of those weird...
But what if you're like me
accidents.
and you can't fuck with subtitles?
Then just watch the original, then watch the orange bricks and skip things. Okay, so this is the thing that really, really frustrates me. There is a whole discourse around Dragon Ball Z subbed, Dragon Ball Z Ocean dub, Dragon Ball Z Funny dub, Dragon Ball Z Orange Brick, Dragon Ball Z Kai, whatever. There's an entire discourse around this. Where the fuck are all of these people doing all of this re-recording and all this editing and all these conversations for literally every other shonen ever?
All I can say to that is, as someone in the Naruto community, it is demanded we get a Naruto Kai.
Exactly.
People are making it. There's fan edits of it, and that's my only way I watch the series of it now, is the fan edits of Naruto Kai. So I think it's something that's needed specifically for something like Naruto or One Piece, where it's just ungodly long. Like, you do not need that many episodes to tell a story you're telling. 100% agree with you. I think it's just the reason why Dragon Ball gets this is, for some reason, Dragon Ball, of every anime, I think we've had this conversation here, like off air, for some reason, despite being so popular and making so much money, has the weirdest fucking release schedules. And like they can't put out a proper release if they tried.
They really can't. I don't understand how they screwed up the orange bricks as badly as they did, and I still don't understand how they screwed up Kai as it went on as much as they did.
Yeah, now they're like doing another release, and the fan base is apparently really pissed off about that. So yeah,
Rays are pretty bad too, so don't buy those.
Yeah. I don't know. All the Kai stuff is something I tend to find kind of interest in like subtle ways, and I don't know, like, again, for me as someone that's seen it all but not, like, you know, lived off of it. You had a quote, Steve, and I'm gonna see if I can say it. You don't remember life without Batman and Dragon Ball, was that it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, you've, like, eaten, breathed, and lived Dragon Ball your whole life.
No, like, literally, my first memory that I can, like, the first memory I can affirm and that I know that is still ingrained in my head is being in my house in Belmar, New Jersey, where our boxes are packed up because we're moving to Bricktown, and Dragon Ball Z is on TV, and it's the episode where Goku and Vegeta first start fighting.
Okay.
It's literally my first memory.
Yeah, and see, like, I just don't have that kind of connection to the franchise. I like the franchise. I love the franchise at times. But, like, these subtle differences, again, to me, if not for the opening, I could have watched this. Like, if I had no idea that Kai had ever existed. Actually, oh no, funny story. When I had no idea that Kai existed, I was over at my friend David's house, and his stepson was watching Dragon Ball on TV. I'm like, wait, they made a new series? Because I saw the intro. And he's like, nah, that's Kai. I'm like, what the fuck's Kai? And he goes, it's like Dragon Ball, but edited down. And I'm like, oh, okay. And like at the time, it didn't even register for me. So like, as someone who like knows the material, but only at, I don't want to say a passing level, but not as on a deep level as I feel either of you two, I legit feel like I could approach Kai and every difference, at least in the Saiyan Saga, is subtle enough that I couldn't really tell you what the significant differences between the original dub and this are. Like, that's the crazy part to me.
Well, see, and that's the other thing that bugs me, is that, yeah, Dragon Ball in all of its dubs, except for, like, the newer ones where they fixed this, like in Kai, has always been off touch with what the original scripts wrote, right? But again, every other shonen that's ever existed, that's ever been dubbed, has the same problem. Why the fuck Dragon Ball Z gets this treatment and no one else does, I don't know. But whatever. But everyone understands that Dragon Ball Z's dub is not perfect. And so you go out of your way to make these minor adjustments so that it is as close to perfect as you can get. And for most people that aren't you and me, Alfie, they're not going to notice. And if they do, the change is so minor, it almost doesn't matter. I could write an analysis of the arc of the Saiyan Saga for every dub based on just literally what every dub says, and they'd be like 95% identical, so I don't know why we bothered.
I think mainly it's almost like, because what I always call back to is I feel like the example you just said then, Ian, I think is maybe a good reason for why I think this, now that we've got it, maybe because they didn't need to happen, but now that we've got it, specifically for Western English-speaking countries, I don't think the Japanese needed Kai. It was literally made to just fill a time slot. The fact that it exists and they got a chance to redub Dragon Ball is like the blessing that the Western fandom got. I think this is necessary as a version you play concurrently, that you play in like 2016, 2019, whatever year one you put, and just say, okay, Dragon Ball's on Toonami, but this is the version we're showing to a new generation. Because I feel like this is the version that can keep and it's shown. Kai came out, a whole new generation fell in love with Dragon Ball because it wasn't in the kind of environment that could get away with it the same way the Z-dub did, because that was in a time where people were starved for anime. Like, this was like a new wave that was happening to Toonami, and every dub was like that. If that came out next to something like My Hero Academia and was running alongside it, people would think it was a joke. People would think like the sound quality and like how the characters act and the emotions of it is from a different time. I just don't think that is a way you can introduce Dragon Ball fans to that and to keep the franchise fresh to new watchers. I guess that's what I I think that's why it's my main recommendation. Like recently, I got my girlfriend Sarah into Dragon Ball, and we watched the original Dragon Ball dub together because that's the only way to do it. And I still think that one holds up pretty well, because they did it after Z. But when we went to Dragon Ball Z, I just said we'll just watch Kai, and she's actually looked up old Z clips, and she's like, "Oh my god, thank you for doing that," because she's just like, specifically because she's very into the shipping fandom. The Bulma Vegeta relationship just isn't there in the original Z dub. It's just completely just like, because I don't think they had restrictions of what they're allowed to show. In Kai, it's a lot more subtle. Again, it's Dragon Ball, so it's barely there still, but like different fan bases hook onto different things, and I think that's my thing. I think this is, and something interesting about Kai, because maybe this is something to address like specifically about the Saiyan Saga, is this I think works as an introduction because you shouldn't split Dragon Ball and Z anyway. But if you're gonna do it, this works as an opener a lot better because it actually sets up an episode 1. Here's the story. There's a flashback to Dragon Ball. There's a flashback to Bardock. Everything's set up. Whereas original Z just drops you, okay, here's Gohan, here's Piccolo, and like we had an entire generation of just growing up. Oh yeah, Piccolo was never a villain.
yeah. No, I was so shocked to find that out at one point. Because my original watch through Dragon Ball was like, I think I got like halfway through the Red Ribbon arc, and I'm like, this dude's sitting in a bathtub of boiling water to boil an egg? That's dumb. And I just got over it because I was 14, and I didn't understand the fun of Tao Pai Pai. But anyway, so like let's use this as a chance to, because we've talked a lot, and Steve will never be convinced once he's got this level of seething hatred for a thing. Let's go ahead and transition and talk about something else Steve can have a seething level of hatred for, and talk about the Saiyan Saga just as a story, as at least as how Kai presents it. So I'll go first now, because I've been unusually quiet, and believe me, thank you, I rarely get that chance.
Moderator this time.
I know, right?
Keeping us boys in check.
You son of a bitch, okay.
So my controversial take is, as far as how I rank the Dragon Ball ones, is Saiyan Saga, Buu Saga, Frieza Saga, Cell Saga. As far as the Z era goes, that's it. Cell Saga very bottom because fuck it, it's boring. So the reason I put the Saiyan Saga so high though is, to me, that is the one arc where like I'd seen very little of it when I was first growing up. Like, I remember the scene where Piccolo told Gohan how to focus and feel out energy to see Yamcha fighting a Cyberman. And then I didn't watch Dragon Ball again until Vegeta versus Kui. Or not Kui, Vegeta versus Frieza Soldier Kui. What the fuck? Really? What the fuck's the name of the one that he fights on Bobby's ship? Kui, and he kills a guy named Kui. So, like, Vegeta just has something against that phonetic sound, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, like, there's, like, a large gap in the Saiyan Saga as far as, like, how much background I have on it. And then, again, like, right after high school, before college, I watched through it all again, and I was like, yeah, this is really good. This is the first time I've ever seen this. And then recently I went through and watched it again, like a year or so ago. I'm like, that's like legitimately the best stuff in Z, and this kind of reaffirms it for me. There's so much heart going into it. There's so much on the line, and the stakes actually feel, again, just a lot more real, because this is before things started to get, incomprehensible, I guess. I mean, yeah, Vegeta and Nappa show up and blow up a city, but, like, that's a level of destruction I can still handle, and then everything after that is still kind of, like, more moderate, Like, it's the characters that are dying that's the real tragedy, not East City or whatever the fuck that was. It's like Tien loses an arm, Chaozu tries to kill himself to take one of them down, and it doesn't work. Yamcha dies, and like he knows that it might happen, so he wants to be the first one to put himself on the line since he can still be wished back and the others can't. Oh god, I love so much of that stuff. That's where all the heart is. And then when Goku, there's the Toriyama tension, I guess you could call it, where it's for no reason except for tension, but it works, goddammit. of Goku running Snake Way, trying to get back in time. All of that stuff works so well for me. And then there's just, you get through all of it, and there's still just this David versus Goliath, but Goliath is like a really short guy, and that makes me feel good about myself. David versus Goliath Vegeta fight, and it's still one of my favorite fights because it's the one where there's the least amount of, oh, come the fuck on bullshit. You know, everyone throws everything at Vegeta, and he's still there. He's just unbelievable, the level of threat they're dealing with, and it's great. And he's got that line, I don't remember if it was in the original dub or if it's just for Kai, but if it's just for Kai, fuck you, Steve. Kai's now the best thing ever. Where Vegeta says, let me show you a wall you'll never be able to scale. And, like, that is, like, Goku's crack right there. Like, oh my god, that is such a perfect fucking line for Vegeta to say to Goku when they first meet. It's like that moment in The Dark Knight where like, Rachel Dawes punches the Joker and he's like, got a little fight in ya. I like that. And then Batman's first line to the Joker is, then you're gonna love me. Like, it's the perfect epitome of that relationship. And so, the same with Vegeta vs. Goku, but it ends up inverting itself, which is just beautiful. So I know where the characters are going, and it's great. And so just to see all that build up, and then the fight actually happens, and Goku's still getting his ass handed to him, and it goes, he uses everything, and he still definitively loses. Like, of all the great fights in Dragon Ball, they're all the ones that Goku loses. Goku versus Frieza, psh, Goku versus Cell, alright. Goku versus Vegeta, yes. Goku versus Jackie Chun, yes! Oh my god, and like that one he loses by a thread, but this one he loses by a mile. And so it's the moment where like everyone that's left alive at least, has to come together and just try to defeat, again, this wall that will never be scaled. And I love everything about it. Chef's kiss.
So I think at this point it's very, very clear to everyone listening and to me and to you guys that the tale of this conversation for me is I am an old man yelling at a cloud. Because I kind of am. And at some point, there really is no, like, valid reason for why I am as annoyed by this remastering of Dragon Ball Z as I kind of am, except for the fact that I'm old and I remember when things were different. So that's kind of where I'm at. Ian, you're absolutely right. My thing is, I always knew Dragon Ball Z. And I knew Dragon Ball Z starting with Goku versus Vegeta, not the Saiyan Saga, and then everything that came after. And then I didn't go back to Dragon Ball until way after the fact that we got like Super Saiyan and Vegeta and shit like that. As a culmination of what Dragon Ball was, the Saiyan Saga is amazing. For what Dragon Ball Z would become, the Saiyan Saga is not very representative. And given that that's what I have such a history with, I have a really hard time going back to the Saiyan Saga, because the Saiyan Saga is that awkward puberty phase from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z, where it's like, oh, you're kind of there, but you're not quite, and you'll be more there the next time you get here, which will be when Goku fights Frieza, or even when Piccolo fights Frieza. And so I completely get that I don't have any sort of like ground to say the Saiyan Saga is bad, but it is the thing that I would rewatch the least, because it's the middle school of Dragon Ball in my brain. On that same note, Alpha, you're really right about the comparison with My Hero Academia. At the same time, though, I didn't have that experience, and I saw Full Metal Alchemist, Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, Inuyasha every fucking night, every single day, every single weeknight, and that was perfect. And that is where all of this comes from. And when you mess with it like Dragon Ball Kai does, it just annoys the hell out of me.
Steve, you know it's true what they say. You become more conservative as you get older. See, you're like a week away from voting Republican.
Apparently.
I think all of that is 100% valid. Like, again, everyone's got their preferred preference for this. And like you said about the Yazzie thing, at the end of the day, you're still getting basically the same story when you boil it down. the fact that you had like that's again, you list of Yu Yu Hakusho, Full Alchemist, and all that together at once. Like, okay, no argument there. That's fucking gold standard. That's some good shit. That's a good night.
That's the starter pack.
Yeah, no, like
Starter pack. I
the
hate
starter.
Yasha, but it is the starter pack.
That's a starter pack I'm jealous of. Again, I was just out of, and again, I'm in the wrong fucking country for it as well. So I was due from the start. So again, I can only be envious of that experience. But because I didn't have that, and because of the UK's weird relationship to Dragon Ball, where we got like the Ocean dub, weirdly, my first experience with like the entire story wasn't even the anime; it was just the video games. I got my first experience for everything of Dragon Ball from Budokai, just playing the story mode for that, and that's how I knew it. That was the only option I had, and on YouTube looking up clips. When I finally got the chance to just buy the entire series, I just bought it from Dragon Ball to GT, and then I just watched it all in that. So to me, it always starts with Goku shot in the head with Bulma, at least in terms of just watching it and appreciating it. So the Saiyan Saga to me isn't the puberty, it's the prime, it's the Batman at 25 and completely at top of his game. This is to me where Toriyama, all the lessons he picked up in Dragon Ball, he has this like fantastic like magnum opus. And then everything from Z is basically keeping all the good things he added in this, but taking away the good things that he kept from Dragon Ball. And that's why I think, like, again, the Saiyan Saga is my favorite like arc in like the entire series, like in Dragon Ball and Z. And I really like the Frieza Saga as well, but even then, they're like that. Their story is like connected, but it's something that I feel like the moment you take away okay, no one's just sitting around and watching. Yajirobe's got a major role in this. Without him, the whole world is fucked. That's the level of everyone's got something to do here that we're at. And I think that's just crazy because we get so far from that. We get to the total opposite where no one has anything to do. Even the characters who are meant to be important and strong, like Gohan and Gotenks, don't have anything to do. So well, that
and that's why, for me, the Android Saga up through Goku fighting Cell is the ideal Dragon Ball, because everyone is not useless yet. There's a lot more, like, leeway for how the transformations are working. Goku is smarter in coming up with full power Super Saiyan than he ever is in anything he's ever done in his whole goddamn life.
True.
And I love that. But all that immediately follows after you get to some of the stuff you get with Frieza. And I don't really like the Namek or Frieza stuff that much, but the moment Piccolo starts fighting Frieza, and then Goku shows up, and then there's like the kind of fight you had with Vegeta and Goku, you have with Goku and Frieza, except Frieza outclasses Goku the whole damn time, and Goku gets super lucky that he unlocks Super Saiyan.
No, I mean, that's totally there, and I guess the thing I like about the Saiyan Saga is, you know, it's crazy. I ranked my stuff just as far as Z goes, but if you go and you expand out the whole thing, Battle of Gods ends up really high on that list too, more the movie than the series. But, like, I really like Goku getting beat, and it's got that Beerus. It's the same thing with Beerus and Goku. Where, like, I really love seeing Goku, who's this character who's, like, trying... His whole statement as a character is, I want to be as strong as I can be. And, like, seeing him meet these just unconquerable things is always really fascinating to me. So seeing him meet Vegeta and just have to be saved is really fascinating to me. And, like, that's why he insists that Krillin let him live. And seeing Goku fight Beerus and give his all and just have to say, I can't, I got nothing else. That's really, really good to me. And seeing, and it all goes back to that second arc of Dragon Ball. We're like, yeah, I watched the first arc and, you know, the hunt for the Dragon Balls, it's all fun, mystical adventure, yada yada. But, like, Master Roshi does all this training, and then Master Roshi enters the tournament with him, and I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. And this old man has to give everything he's got to beat his pupil, but he does, and he beats him by, like, a dirty trick. And it's just like Goku, like, he might have all the physical stuff down, but he's still got, like, this mental, like, maturity journey to go through. And then he's going through that really the whole time until you get to the Saiyan Saga, because he doesn't even necessarily have the mental maturity against Piccolo Jr. because he's treating it like a goddamn game the whole time, and he refuses to break tournament rules, even though the fate of the world is on the line. And then he's finally grown past that once he's had the experience of dying and finally has to face Vegeta. It's not a game anymore. There's like this real maturity to the character at that point, and that's why I love that saga so much. Is just it closes the door on Dragon Ball in so many ways and opens the door for the rest of Z. And I do love a lot of the stuff that happens in Z. I do love the Goku versus Frieza battle, but it is like he gets a hat trick. He gets lucky. So there's a little dissatisfaction with there. I like things about the Cell Saga with the androids and whatnot. But it annoyed me always that it all came down to, unlocking Super Saiyan 2, which ultimately kind of made Super Saiyan pointless.
Super Saiyan 2 is bullshit. I will give you that. My issue more with the way the Cell Saga works in conjunction with talking about the Sand Saga, is just so we don't get too far off tangent, is that Goku in the Saiyan Saga learns two very particular skills. He learns the Spirit Bomb, which, by the way, never works the same way ever, goddamn again.
It never works, period. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it never works, but it specifically never works this way ever again, no matter what version you watch. And he learns the Kaioken. And he's got a very specific limit on the Kaioken. He's got very specific ground rules for how the Spirit Bomb is supposed to work. And he uses those, and Vegeta still beats the shit out of him the whole time. But Goku's entire fight with Vegeta is having these two very specific tools and stretching them back and forth, expanding and contracting them based on how Vegeta responds. And Goku's got nothing else. Those are his only two movesets. You flash forward to getting Super Saiyan, and Goku only has that one trick, really. He's super strong, he's got a Kamehameha, and he's got Super Saiyan, because he doesn't really use Kaioken again until you get to Dragon Ball Super, which is one of the only good things Dragon Ball Super did consistently, which is make use of that Kaioken. But the thing about the Cell Saga that I really like is that it acknowledges that the only thing the Saiyans have is Super Saiyan, and then when Goku comes up with full power Super Saiyan and makes use of the body strain thing and getting rid of that as a weakness so you have your full energy to fight instead of wasting it on transforming, that's the smartest thing he could have possibly done. It's still the smartest thing anyone's ever done in Dragon Ball. And if they kept doing it, there would be no way to beat them. Mm-hmm. And that's part of why I like that. It's literally what you're talking about with the Saiyan Saga, with Goku having a very specific skill set and just expanding and contracting it to the best of his ability. And I love that. His fight with Cell is still hands down my favorite fight in the entire franchise.
Yeah, I really do like it, but there's always this side to me, and I'll use that to wrap back to the Saiyan Saga, where I don't believe he really gave it his all. Like, he's got Gohan in his back pocket, and so I think on some level he knows he doesn't have to give it his all, and I think that's especially apparent when, like, later on in that arc he's like, no, wait, I'll go back in, and, like, that's when he's ready to give it his all. It's just the opportunity's taken from him.
I don't know. So part of what I like about, again, Cell versus Vegeta here is that for Vegeta, the fate of the world was at stake, obviously, and Goku fought with the conviction that the fate of the world was at stake. I think there's a different kind of Goku that fights Cell, that fights Jackie Chun, that fights Beerus, and it's the kind of Goku that says, I'm fighting for fun, almost in a Saitama way, but not in a Saitama way. Mm-hmm. Part of why I like his fight with Beerus as much as I like his fight with Cell, and why I don't put his first fight with Vegeta quite on par with them, is that Goku's isn't pulling out all the stops to like as like some kind of desperate jester. Who he is just fighting, and he's just having fun fighting, and you don't see that in Shonen almost ever. Like, there's really no other series where the main character and the main antagonist of an arc have a fight where the protagonist is just like, this is great. It's always the fate of the world. It's the fate of the world with Cell. It's the fate of the world with Vegeta. It's the fate of a world with Majin Buu until you get to Kid Buu. Goku is not fighting just for fun, except that one time with Beerus and that one time with Cell, and I love that.
Okay. I think that's fair, and that's a good point to make. I think you get more if he's fighting just for fun in Dragon Ball than you do by the time you get to Z.
Until you get to the Red Ribbon Army, and then he's just massacring dudes and going on a blind rage after Krillin gets killed by Tambourine.
Yeah, you know.
That's a little less fun.
A little less fun. I mean, what, you've never gone on blind rage when your friend got killed by a demon?
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying there's a lot of that in that show. Really?
Yeah. So, I don't know. I love the Saiyan Saga for that reason of pushing to the limit, which is kind of what Dragon Ball is all about. Alfie, you've been kind of quiet on your thoughts on the story side of the Saiyan Saga.
Well, I think between you both, you've covered a lot of where I was feeling. I definitely think the Goku-Vegeta battle and conflict is really strong. Maybe not necessarily, because I think specifically of Goku's character arc in this is the first time we find out what he is, and how just directly tied into his blood his desire for fighting is. And I think his reaction to Raditz is really interesting, because he's like straight up saying, no, I don't want to do this. And when Piccolo's like, aren't you excited to fight him? And Goku's like, for the only time in the series, like ever, Raditz, he's like, no, I'm terrified at the thought of there being two more of this guy. And he's only in it to save his son. It's a very different type of Goku, because he's so outmatched against Raditz. Like, it's not even a fight. He takes him down in one hit. Even Beerus, who flicks him in the head, when he goes Super Saiyan God, he can at least punch him. When he gets Raditz, for some reason, Raditz is the one who just completely annihilates him. But then he goes through King Kai, and he kind of when he gets to learn about the Saiyan heritage, he's got a year to kind of stow on it. When he comes down, he fights Nappa, and he sees what all of these people have done to his friends and his comrades, who also kind of came into it like Yamcha and everyone come into it pretty cocky. They're like, oh, we got pretty cool. We take out Cybermen's pretty easily. We're way stronger than Goku was when he fought Raditz. Now we can take this. They think it's like a martial arts tournament. They get taken out, and everyone's like, oh shit, this isn't Dragon Ball anymore. Everyone's dropping like flies. And when Goku comes there and he has this righteous rage, and he just gets to beat down on Nappa, I think that's interesting, because he kind of gets that out of his system. Because the moment he fights Vegeta, he's very much back to, I'm mostly just kind of excited for this, because you're meant to be the prince. And I think that ties directly into maybe Goku's character arc that informs the Cell fight you like so much, or even just how he treats Boo, and he's so adamant about, oh, Boo, I hope you get resurrected, or how he gives Frieza energy. Is that Goku, who wants to give people a second chance and, like, train, is kind of formed here. It was kind of formed with Piccolo, but Piccolo just kind of got up and left, and he had the excuse of wanting to keep Kami alive. With Vegeta, though, it is actively a bad thing that will fuck him over in the future, like, twice. But he's like, no, and this is why I like Kai, like, to get back to, like, the Kai part as well. In Z, he kind of goes, oh, I it would be wrong to kill him. Krillin, don't do it. Don't stoop to his level. Which, okay, sure, it's that, like, superhero logic. Yeah, like, it's the Batman logic, it's the Superman logic, that's fine. But for Goku, and specifically why I think we've been liking Goku, the underdog who just fights to go to his limits, and that's what he's pushing for, the fact that he lets Vegeta go solely because he wants to fight him and actually beat him one-on-one, and he's kind of pissed off that he had to get help, I think it's fascinating, and it really informs where he goes in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do really like that aspect more, because it is one of those things where Goku's, like, Superman-esque portrayal in the original dub is something that never really bothers me as much as it does other fans, but I think it is the most evident departure here, honestly. Like, I don't know, a lot of people will cite the hope of the universe versus the Super Saiyan legend that you feared Frieza thing. That, for me, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, it's like, the end of the day, that statement is, Frieza, I'm about to fuck your whole world. I'm about to end this man's whole career. Like, that's what that speech is all about, no matter what way you cut it. As far as the reasoning for letting Vegeta go, that's a very different thing when you go with this characterization, where he wants that challenge again.
I mean, in a way, letting Vegeta go like that is sort of the DBZ equivalent of Han shot first.
Yeah?
Like, it's the exact same logic where everything about that character is in that moment, and you can't mess with that.
No, I tend to agree with that. I don't know. Han shot first just is such a baggage term from all the douchebag Star Wars fans at this point.
Yeah, that whole thing is bullshit, and I could give two shits about Han shooting first. But that's the same logic.
No, I totally agree. And so yeah, I think that is a really big deal, and it's one of those things where I guess I kind of get where the kind of, you know, nose up in the air superiority. I feel like the feeling, not necessarily I'm saying that any one person does it, but I've always gotten this feeling from certain fans of the sub over the dub Dragon Ball. I guess seeing moments like that, I can kind of understand more where that comes from, like the looking down on the dub side of stuff. And so it is cool to get that characterization here. It is cool to get those moments here. You know, it was funny, I was watching this with Haley, and we got to the part where, like, you know, everybody's just down and out, and Goku's lying on the ground, his arms are broken, his legs are broken, and he's lying next to his son, who Vegeta's about to kill. And then Vegeta just starts, like, kicking Goku's fucking body because he's so pissed off. And Haley's like, these two become friends?
Best buddy!
Right?
Jeez.
Hey, Jeets. And I'm like, yep, they do. And she's like, how? And I'm like, Frieza. And like, I don't know, that's there. That stuff is just really, really cool to see.
The kind of 180 from kicking his motionless corpse to crying and begging him to kill Frieza.
That is character development.
A lot of emotion in like 3 months.
It's a character development, man. Oh, that shit's too good. Oh, yeah. Toriyama's got one trick, and he just knows how to use it really well. Tien, Piccolo, Vegeta, kinda could argue Majin Buu, Android 18, Android 17, Beerus. It's the same fucking thing over and hell, you can even go further back and call Krillin and Yamcha too.
Oh, yeah.
Toriyama's got one trick and he knows how to use it. Oh man, I'm just waiting. Like when he doesn't do it, it almost feels a little sad. You got your Raditzes, which has spawned a whole fucking series. You got your Cells. It's almost a little sad when he doesn't make them good. Anyway. Oh man, fucking crazy ass shit.
How do you? I guess you want to go ahead with that.
No, go.
Because you were talking about the one trick and kind of like one of the just out of the Goku aspect. How do you both feel about the Gohan Piccolo aspect and I guess Piccolo's arc in this and his culmination?
In Kai or in general?
Go for both. Like maybe give you in general and then you could talk about how Kai ruined it.
So you see, Kai exists, and therefore it is worse. But anyway, Piccolo and Gohan's thing is not a thing I understood until I was much, much older. Because when I was a kid, like when most people when they're kids, Goku's just awesome, and Goku's great, and Goku's gonna wreck your shit, and you just can't wait for Goku to show up. But then you grow up, and you're like, wow, this dude's a shitty dad. Because he's not a dad. He's just kind of barely there and has maybe 2 moments of real fatherhood in them. One of them being in Cell, where Piccolo's like, dude, he's killing your son. I really, really like what Piccolo and Gohan grow to represent as the series goes on, particularly when Gohan becomes very affirmative about being represented by Piccolo's colors and not necessarily Goku's. Choosing to wear Piccolo's uniform in the Cell games, I feel like, is a huge moment. Piccolo coming in and saving Gohan, but then also trusting in Gohan to help fight Frieza in a way that Vegeta just kind of manipulated him to get stronger. I like all of that a lot. I think the stuff that it's really interesting about Piccolo and Gohan gets the groundwork here, but I feel like less of the substance happens until later. His scene where he's dying and he basically just admits to Gohan that like, oh, you're like a son to me. That's really good. I feel it's slightly unearned until you see more of them together, not just in Kai, but in general. I feel like that's a scene that makes way more sense in my brain when he gets lasered in the chest by Frieza. In Kai, however, they cut way too much of it out, and it practically comes out of nowhere.
I guess it's hard to say that without prior knowledge, like interfering, because I guess it'd be interesting to talk to someone who's like Kai's was like their very first introduction to Dragon Ball and ask them that. But I guess I can see where you're coming from. But yeah, that's an interesting. What about how did you feel about it, Ian?
You know, I do think Kai kind of, for Gohan learning his lesson and then having to relearn it thing, I mean, that's not a new thing, especially in Dragon Ball. You know, I say that as a Vegeta stan. So, like, I guess Kai's probably the weakest in that regard for me, because for all the filler being really, like, redundant for Gohan, there are moments from it that I think are really good for building that Gohan-Piccolo relationship. The episode where Gohan goes home and he's right at the edge of the woods, and all he has to do is walk out and knock on the door and he'll be with his mom again. And then he decides, no, I need to go back. I need to train with Piccolo. That's a really big moment for me, and it does help to kind of build their relationship. It does mean something at that point, and I will give the filler staff some credit there. Robot and the fucking orphan children, maybe not so much. But like that, it's a little sad to know that wasn't in the original, you know? Because it's just so good. As is, we just kind of like, we skip so much time. We skip 6 months in one episode, and Gohan's, you know, cutting the tails off of T-Rexes and all that stuff. That scene made Haley sad because we have a pet lizard.
So she's just running for its life?
Yeah, right?
Oh, it's so sad. No, but you're right. That's the other thing about this that really bothers me, is that the passage of time between the Saiyans arriving feels way too fast in Kai in a way it didn't with all the filler there. I feel like it's even more apparent when you get to the Android Saga. Even in the original, it's kind of a problem because there's like 2 training episodes, and then everything else is filler, and then they're just there. But in Kai, it's even worse, where it's just like, they're coming in 3 years. 3 minutes later, it's been 3 years. Yeah. Yeah, that stuff can get a little much. So I think Piccolo and Gohan's relationship probably suffers the most in this than it does anywhere else.
And I will agree with that. Specifically, a point of like just the time gaps in Dragon Ball in general is the problem of doing a straight adaptation of the manga. Is a weakness of Toriyama, is he just loves to just jump time and not show a fucking thing. Like the Android Saga in the manga is literally turn the page, 3 years have been passed. You don't even get to see Vegeta turn Super Saiyan. It's just, there's never a flashback to that. It's just he turns it and he explains how he did it. There's never him training in the gravity chamber. There's never Gohan going cars with Piccolo. Like, it's just instant. And the Saiyan Saga doesn't have as much of a problem because you actually get that you start it, it's the same cut. You get the Gohan turns Uzaru, attacks the mountain like with Great Ape Rage, Piccolo blows up the moon, gives him a new outfit, and then there's like a jump to when Gohan's now efficient. That's in the manga. The problem with that is you don't get some of those good scenes, like you mentioned Gohan and Piccolo just when she's like going to Chi-Chi's house. I also really like the moment where Gohan and Piccolo are just like, Gohan's just like passed out, and then Piccolo just kind of like looks over him. There's like little moments like that really help sell when like Kami's just thinking about, because this is the first time, because Piccolo's he's only like 5 years older than Gohan. Looks old, but he's still just a kid.
That's a good point.
That's why he's like, he sees Gohan, like, to me it's always felt like a Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson thing where they're like brothers and can be interpreted like, maybe Gohan looks up to him and sees him as a father, Piccolo looks down and sees him as like a brother, because they're that close in. This Piccolo grew up really fucking fast, and he's only ever had his life of kill Goku. That didn't work, so we spent 5 years just kind of sitting on his ass, not doing anything. Raditz comes, give him a wake-up call, sees this kid, now he has a purpose in life, and tries to do the exact same thing his dad did to him, to Gohan, because that's all he knows. But then Gohan just doesn't take that. He just treats him like a person. And that really throws him. And even when you get into the fight, and he's kind of disappointed in Gohan, because Gohan's just this is when he reveals that, oh shit, he's just a 5-year-old. Piccolo's like, I was fucking kicking your dad's ass at that age.
When I was 5.
Legit, it's the same thing. So it makes sense in that context why Piccolo would be so okay bringing such a young child. But then he kind of he's always got his inner monologues of like, come on, kid, I know you can do this. And when Gohan finally does set up, it's the moment Piccolo has to sacrifice himself. And when he does that big Masenko, where he's like finally using his power to the fullest, it's too late. And I feel that's really interesting, because if you look at how Piccolo and Kami just both, even Kami's like, oh, I know I'm going to die in a year, but that gets established. But it's not like a bit of anger or anything, because he's just like, holy shit, my evil half did a more noble thing than I ever did. I'm the most useless god on earth. All that shit's so good. Like, that's literally the son of the devil dying and doing a more noble act than the counterpart of God. Like, Jesus Christ, about subtlety. But all of that's fantastic. And then you see Gohan's journey to this kid who's just like, you start the episode and he's just playing on a log and he falls down, he's screaming, he doesn't know how to use his power. And then he learns how to use it in just one burst of rage against Raditz, but it's fleeting. And Piccolo just spends all this time trying to train him, but never quite gets there. But then at the end, and Goku's down, Krillin's down, Gohan's the only one who's fighting Vegeta at that point, and he's going like hand to hand with him. And he's just completely a warrior at that point. And I think that arc isn't as good as it could be. The most ideal version of this would be if you could like pick the best episodes of the filler and add them in, which they probably should have done. They should have just had like, not just we're just gonna cut to manga, we're gonna take the good shit. How you be objective about that, I guess, is hard to say, but if I was in charge...
I mean, there's, like, filler to keep. Like, you keep the Otherworld tournament. I'm going to be controversial and say you should probably keep at least some of the Garlic Jr. stuff. There's filler to keep. I could agree with that.
This is the larger problem, though, with how we view manga and anime adaptations and how they're responded to, particularly in the West. Because the idea of filler doesn't make any sense to me in any way. If it's in the thing, it's in the thing. Mm-hmm. It's not filler. Filler doesn't make sense. Filler as a concept would be like if there was just white air between episodes and you had to cut the white air. This is okay. Speaking of controversial opinions, this is why Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood kind of sucks. And the original Fullmetal Alchemist anime is actually really good. Because people hate that anime, in part because they think it's all just filler that's moving around the manga story and cutting the important parts of the manga, when actually it's just the parts of the manga with story beats that work, rearranged and cut with quote-unquote filler that make it more cohesive and make more sense. In an ideal world, Fullmetal Alchemist is like the better written version of the manga. And then with stuff like Dragon Ball Z, there's so much quote-unquote filler that at least half of it you could single out and say, this is actually a well-written episode for this series that does something to move the plot along, and we should probably arguably keep it. The episode in between the Cell games where Gohan goes to that village where Mercenary Tao is and beats the shit out of him, that's filler, sure. But that's still doing some kind of like thematic work for who Gohan grows up to be in contrast to Goku. And just the idea of being like, not in the manga equals bad and therefore not canon, despite literally being within the canon.
GT isn't canon.
Yeah, which is just like, what's on the frame is canon. And the idea that the idea that doesn't make sense for anyone in the manga community really, really throws me. Like, in what other conversation are we ever in a situation where being on the frame doesn't count as being canon?
Like, if they ever did the dream, if we ever got a straight just adaptation of every issue of Tom King Batman in the same way that manga adapts anime, but like in the lead up to City of Bane, there's just like episodes where Batman and Catwoman meet up and flirt but never get together again to buy time. I think that's the only way it would kind of, you can see some shit like that in like, it's just so far away from how we perceive like animation and just adaptations in general, because the manga's very different in that that's the main product. The anime is always made to like promote the manga. It's like an advertisement. So filler is automatically seen as, oh, they're not. That's why they don't care about spoiling stuff in anime openings, because it's meant to be a teaser of, oh, don't worry, we're gonna do this part. And that's why like anime titles will like completely spoil something in the thing, and the Western fan base is like, what the fuck? Why did you do that? But the Japanese fan base is, oh yeah, they're gonna do this now because we've already read the manga. It's such a different mindset that I think is weird. I can totally get why it just feels so different to have this discourse.
Well, and but the other thing is, so much of anime now in Japan is geared towards the idea of being serialized and broadcast and dubbed in America. Japan's whole relationship to the U.S. is fascinating and weird, and that could be a video unto itself. It could be several videos unto itself. But especially like when we talk about Dragon Ball Super, when we talk about the way My Hero Academia has its hiatuses, stuff like that, there's so much about anime now that even the people writing the mangas are saying, okay, what is this going to look like eventually when it gets dubbed and broadcast as an anime in America? And when you do that, and you still have this mentality of anime has filler and the manga is the thing that's canon, I don't entirely understand the desire to like say filler is a concept that we should ignore, or even the idea of the manga is the main product, because you're right, it totally is. But with the way the mangas are written lately, you might as well just write a script for an anime because you're not really writing manga. Like the My Hero Academia manga, I don't think reads well at all. But it's almost literally translated in the anime, and it's great.
That's interesting. And like it's a really interesting thought, but I think we should move on from it a bit because I don't think it's quite reflected here as much, you know? Like this is more kind of before that era of things has happened. At least the original Dragon Ball. Kai is kind of in that shaky transitional period, I guess I'd say. But yeah, that is a really interesting point to kind of dwell on. I wanted to make sure we talked about one thing. It is kind of funny that he's only kind of come up tangentially, but he's like the main threat of the, or at least if not the main threat, the most consistent threat of the arc. Can we talk about Nappa for a few minutes?
God damn it, Nappa.
God damn it, Nappa. Yeah, so for all the love I have for the Saiyan Saga, it is almost entirely directed at Vegeta, but at the same time, I kind of like Nappa and Vegeta's dynamic. Like, just everything about him, like, it's like literally, Abridged has so much fun with it because it's literally comedy gold. It's the short skinny guy and the big fat guy that's bald, you know? Like, that is like a classic comedy dynamic. And like, they still kind of have that even when they're this serious threat. Nappa's just this fucking tank, and everyone's throwing everything they have at him. And I kind of like Nappa for what he does for Vegeta, because also Vegeta and Nappa are just height swapped Krillin and Goku, and that's adorable. But did you never notice that?
I never thought of that.
You're welcome. You'll never unsee that now.
Oh my god, they're palette swap Goku and Krillin!
But like, I really like Nappa, who's just bulldozing through all the Z fighters who have done all this training, and at one point, Piccolo just kind of comes to the realization, well shit, if we're having this much trouble with this one, and he's afraid of the little guy, what the hell's he packing? Like, I love that moment so much, and just, it it's such a cool setup for just, again, it's Toriyama just fucking loves these tricks. It's so funny that, you know, Vegeta lets Cell transform into perfect form, and one of the lines he has to him is like, all your transformations, and you always end up looking so much weaker. I'm like, Vegeta, shut the fuck up. You were that guy. You were the fucking, like, the one that looked weaker but was more dangerous. Shut the fuck up. I love you, but shut your stupid mouth. And that's, like, the cool thing about Nappa is he comes in and he is legitimately a threat. It's not like he just looks like a threat, but then he's a pushover. He's a legitimate threat the whole time, and then Vegeta's worse. And I love that, especially just everything that it does for Vegeta's character when Nappa's, like, completely worthless. He's like, Vegeta, help me up. And he's like, alright. And just fucking tosses him like a goddamn claymore. Ah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best. Something that I feel like the Saiyan arc does the best is the trope of the escalating threat. Dragon Ball always does this where you fight someone and it's revealed they're nothing compared to the next villain, but then the next villain is like nothing compared to them. We do that with Frieza, we do it with Cell, we kind of do that Majin Buu, but with himself. So that's kind of a thing, but here it's never you never get like a Zarbon or a Dodoria where they're literally only there to get beaten. You never get like an Android 19 who's literally only there to get Vegeta stomp on him. When Raditz shows up, it's the culmination of, okay, Piccolo was the main bad guy of the arc, and Goku's our hero, and this guy's fighting both of them with, like, ease. Holy fuck. But then he drops the line, oh, by the way, I'm shit. 2 more guys who are both stronger than me are coming. And we're like, oh, fuck, those guys are coming. Then Raditz, Nappa, and Vegeta show up. And then Nappa's like, oh, Raditz? We can grow him. And it's like that, but then Nappa's about to attack someone, and then Vegeta says stop, and then Nappa, who's been calm, smiling this whole time, has like the most fucking like freaked out, shits his black pants moment you've ever seen of like, yes boss, sorry, and let me go lick your boots clean, sorry master. It's so well done because none of the villains ever feel like they're a joke. Raditz never feels like he's a joke until after he's already gone. Nappa never feels like he's a joke until Goku already turns up and everyone's already fought Nappa. Everyone already gets their due and gets their moment to shine as the threat, but it's also handled in a perfect way where all the heroes' work to defeat them is only served to enhance the threat of the next guy. And I think that's the best time it's ever been handled.
Yeah, Nappa's just so good, and like, I don't know, just everything that he gets thrown at him, you know. Again, part of what I like about the Sand Saga is no one's on their bullshit of, oh, we've all got to wait to fight him one at a time. Like, everyone's throwing everything they've got at Nappa. Like, Piccolo comes up with these brilliant strategies to use against Nappa, like, 2-3 times. And they all fail, but not through any fault of his own, really. So, like, that's really good, and, like, there's just so much, like, desperation in the fights with Nappa. Yamcha gets taken out pretty quickly, Tien's getting just destroyed, gets his fucking arm taken. God, I wish Tien just never got that arm back. That added so much to his character, who just stands around.
Also, wait, hang on, but what the fuck is with his line where he's like, don't worry, it'll grow back, and then it does?
Wait, what? Serious?
That's in the dub. That's in the OG dub, yeah, because they weren't allowed to say.
Yeah. So in the original dub for Dragon Ball, he gets his arm cut off, and then at some point he's like, don't worry, it'll grow back, and then it literally grows back.
Okay, that's fucking ridiculous. I didn't remember that. That's hilarious.
The only thing I remember about the fact that he lost his arm is that he could just magically apparently grow new ones.
I mean, he does have that technique in Dragon Ball where he grows, like, 2 extra arms out of his shoulder blades. So, like, if anyone could do it that's a human, I guess it should be Tien, right?
I mean, I suppose so.
Yeah, I mean, that's the dude with the multiform technique. I mean, he should conceivably be the one that's gonna be able to do this shit. Anyway, so Tien gets his arm fucking taken, and then, like, again, Chaozu's a fucking nothing character, but, like, you still feel it just because I like Tien quite a bit too. So you still feel it because you're feeling it through Tien when Chaozu sacrifices himself to try to take Nappa out. And there's just, it's such a Toriyama move. There's like that, that's so sad, but at least it worked. And then he's just, it didn't even kind of phase him. He's a little scuffed up. Part of his armor's broken. That's all it did. You had this character put everything on the line, literally put his life on the line, and it just scuffed him up a little bit. That's so great. That's what makes Nappa such he's just a tank. It's just amazing to see these characters who we've grown to love and be amazed at all their skill, and they're just getting fucking bulldozed. It's so just as a tool for building drama, I have a hard time thinking of anything better than that.
One thing about Dragon Ball, because I've always wanted to do like a rewrite of Dragon Ball Z and just kind of like add stuff in, cut certain things, and create mini arcs between the big arcs. But one of the arcs that would have been really nice to have between the end of the Saiyan and before you get to Namek is have a more adequate sense of downtime and power scaling after the Saiyans arrive. Or, I mean, after they've been beaten, or however you want to classify that, since they don't really lose. Because Tien versus Goku the first time is great. It's a really good fight. Tien versus Goku the second time is one of my favorite fights in all of Dragon Ball. I think it's fantastic. And Goku outclassing him after he takes off his weighted training gear is great.
Mm-hmm.
Tien versus Kaioken Goku is a thing we never got and would have been really fucking cool to see. And seeing 3 years of training Piccolo versus Yamcha or Tien or Krillin, who could have beaten him but got unlucky, or Kaioken Goku, all of that would have been legitimately great to see. And we never get any of that. And the same sort of problem rears its head after you get to the Frieza saga and lead into the androids, which is you get Super Saiyan, and then immediately get 2 more Super Saiyans, when you instead should have an arc where there's only 1 Super Saiyan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know, like, I see where you're coming from. At the same time, there is the idea of capitalizing on the momentum, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I see what you're saying, that there probably should have been an arc, but like, where Goku's the only Super Saiyan for a while, and maybe that's where we got our first Vegeta versus Goku rematch, and Goku got to win that one. That could have been interesting. But at the same time, just the holy fuck factor of Frieza showed back up, and this Super Saiyan that no one's ever seen before just came and killed him and said, okay, he's a fucking joke. Let me tell you about the real shit that's about to happen. That's probably better than anything you would have gotten with any downtime. I can't fault Toriyama for that. That is a really strong creative decision.
Mm-hmm. He's never one to write those lulls. He's never one to have characters be relatively equal to each other for like a long period of time, because I guess that kind of goes against the whole idea of just constant improvement. Is no one's going to be the same level around each other the entire time, be it Goku, Piccolo, Vegeta, or anyone, because the moment they are, the next one's going to figure something out, because that's just who they are as characters, and that's what propels these everlasting threats. You have Goku as just the Super Saiyan, while everyone else is around, or even this, because a lot of the movies, like, between like, take place during that weird period where characters from the Saiyan Saga are still alive, but Goku can do like Kaioken times 20, like the Tree of Might movie and stuff like that. That's kind of like the closest we ever get to what you're throwing out there, Steve. And I think that's a cool idea, but I think it's something that just wouldn't carry an arc, because it's just so against what Dragon Ball does.
Yeah, I mean, especially what Dragon Ball Z does compared to Dragon Ball. But yes.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the closest you get for that is, like, the Garlic Jr. arc.
Right, which is why I like it.
Yeah, minus Kami and Popo running their asses off, sure.
Well, I mean, yeah. It's got its problems, but Goku, Krillin, and Piccolo fighting Garlic Jr. is more situations I wish I saw.
You mean Gohan, yeah.
Gohan, yes. You know what I mean.
It's just nice to have a threat that Goku doesn't beat. Like, if more of the movies were that would be fantastic.
Or just like more teamwork, where it's not even that the threat is unbeatable. It's just these specific combinations of people only have a particular set of skills and have to do the best they can.
Yeah.
Which is part of why the Nappa fight is so good, because everyone is kind of shit and they can only do so much.
Mm-hmm. And like, it's a little unfair that Chaozu's like one gimmick against Nappa doesn't work, and it's just like written off at the line. I'm trying to hypnotize him, but he didn't even flinch. I'm like, well, shit, you're just useless, and that's why Goku's never talked to you. You never noticed that either, did you? Yeah.
No.
Goku never says
cares about Chaozu.
Goku never says a fucking word to Chaozu in the entirety of the series, ever.
That's amazing.
Like, I think they legit hate each other.
That's like one of those things that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you start mapping out the ramifications, it suddenly becomes a bigger one. Like in Age of Ultron, Tony and Quicksilver never talk. And that's kind of a movie-breaking problem.
A little bit. So yeah, just, I don't know, all that shit's crazy. So yeah, I really do love the Nappa fight. Again, there's, for as much as I don't think I noticed a ton of the differences with Kai, I do think that cutting out a lot of the filler is maybe a mistake, because the Saiyan Saga, more than anything else in Z, kind of depends on a lot of that filler. Again, because, like, Yajirobe just comes out of fucking nowhere. And it's like seriously, you see him on the lookout with Kami, and then the next time you see him, he's just in the area where Goku and Vegeta randomly picked to show up. And it's like, what? But you kind of need Yajirobe's filler arc with the media and him saying that he beat all the Saiyans himself. Yajirobe, Hercule before Hercule. So I don't know, that stuff's I don't know, it's a bit of a problem with the series, but I quite liked it. I still think it's really good. I think it's probably in ways on the same footing, if not a little bit better than the original dub for me. And again, at some point in the vague future, I'll probably end up reading the manga and think that's the best, but who knows? Who's to say? Yeah, for me, I don't know. I really, really like this. Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to make sure we covered while we talked about DB Kai Saiyan Saga?
I guess just it's really fucking cool to see Vegeta be like the most dominant force in the series for the only time in his life.
Yeah.
Really fair point.
Yeah, I don't know, like the fucking talking Ozaru is still one of the weirdest images to me, and it's so fucking cool. That shit's ridiculous. He's like, it's like, it should be the trope of, oh, well, now he might be more powerful, but also he's not as quick, or he's not as smart in this form. Nope, he might be even worse. It's great.
Because that reminds me of another dubism, and I kind of wish we just ran with more of the dubisms and made him a story, like Tien being able to regrow arms. But when he becomes an Ozaru in the dub, he's like, the scientist Bardock developed this technique. Like, yes! What if Bardock was a scientist?
Then he'd just be
Jor-El.
No, that's legit the reasoning. They were just like, we need to make him more like Jor-El. Your father had a weak battle power, but he was a brilliant scientist.
Yeah, just make him Jor-El and see what happens.
Your father, Bardock, the scientist, the very same.
I will say the best version of Dragon Ball Z Kai is Dragon Ball Abridged.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with that. I think
100%.
I think DBZA is probably the best dub of Dragon Ball. Just God, it's
Kind
like,
of the ideal way to watch Dragon Ball, honestly.
Bardock, aren't you some kind of scientist? Not really. I got this fake moon thing I'm working on. This shit's so dumb.
I fucking love it.
Oh man. All right. Let's go ahead and go on to ratings. I'm gonna save Steve for last because I'm curious. Alfie, why don't you go first?
I'm gonna say specifically with the Kai version. Like if this was just a Saiyan Saga in general, I'd give it 5. never used again Nimbuses out of 5. But because I feel like Kai it's not Buu Saga level where it's legit, maybe even worse than the original thing, just because of how it's just weirdly edited and you can tell no effort was put in it. It's where they're finding their footing with Kai. There's some choices that are like questionable, and I think the Saiyan Saga was the one that leaded the edit the least. I think you can still it's longer still, but I feel like you can power through a lot of those fillers and still have a good time. Kai really picks up with Frieza. I think that's the peak. It's fucking saves that saga. And then Sal's just kind of like a solid thing. So I think just for the Kai version of the Saiyan Saga, I'm going to give it 4 never used again Nimbuses out of 5.
Okay. For me, I'll go with 4.5 out of 5 beam struggles, because this Sand Saga is also, like Steve, you're right, it is where we start to develop a lot of tricks that are used throughout Z, and like the beam struggle is like that's what it's first used is here, so it's just crazy. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 beam struggles.
I'm gonna give it. I'm trying to think of something funny to say on the end. I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5 dead Yamcha corpses.
Nice. You know they made an action figure of dead Yamcha?
I did see that, and I kind of want it. So I've got a fireplace now, and I kind of want to put it in my fireplace.
Oh, poor dead Yamcha.
But yeah, no, 3.5 out of 5 in general, because I think the Piccolo stuff really suffers. I think the editing is still really bad. I don't like the voice acting. But I can't, like, say most of my dislike isn't just biased towards being an angry old man about it, so I can't give it, like, a 0.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Is it Steve or is it Alfie? I guess it's Steve, right? Steve, we need a discussion topic for next week.
Alrighty. Let's talk about... I don't know how to form this as a brief topic title, but like, you know that trend in media of giving characters their quote-unquote Unforgiven or Dark Knight Returns story? Like Old Man Logan, Dark Knight Returns, Unforgiven, Daredevil End of Days, all the Marvel End series, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about those.
Let's talk about doing the final chapter
Yeah,
story.
the last ride kind of stories and all the tropes they share. And like, what is our obsession with giving everyone in comics a Dark Knight Returns?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's interesting. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. Tune in next week for that. Until then, I'm the Philosopher.
I'm a geek for fun.
And I have a master's degree.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you,
And
Rock.
we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.